So all those people we were talking about last week dying at over 100 or near 2, and literally within minutes of recording this show, we got news that, the last show, that Herman Wouk, 103.
103.
It's unbelievable.
You know, I thought Herman was dead already.
I did too.
Sorry about that, Herm.
I did too.
I think we started the run. I think we decided we started it with Seymour Castle.
Yeah.
Then we got our Luke Perry.
Yeah.
Then our John Singleton.
And Peggy Lipton.
Joan.
Tim Conway and Doris Day. And,
Doris.
Yeah.
And Herman.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are others in there that we're missing.
But sort of significant.
Yeah,
figures,
it's not. We're not yet on that catastrophic level where we're losing, Prince and Bowie and George Michael all within just weeks of each other, or capping the year. But
except for Singleton and Luke.
Yeah.
Well, Luke and Singleton both wholly like that.
Yeah, that's all premature.
Yeah, but the other ones, long lives, but really long lives. Some of them. Really long lives, some of them. Yeah. Herman. Herman, I never read any of those books.
I didn't either. I just saw the miniseries.
I only knew it from the miniseries. I
did too. But, hey, and he didn't write that many books, apparently.
Yeah, well, they were all these sort of big post-war, pre-war, during the war, melodrama epics or something like that. Yeah. But the movies were fun. The TV.
Winds of War was a big deal at the time. It was a really, really big deal at the time. So to kind of revisit a few things. So the battle between the agents and the Writers Guild is kind of simmered down. That seems to be going nowhere. Agents aren't really bending, but the writers aren't panicking. And all the writers I know are just doing business with their attorneys, and they appear to not really need their agents right now.
Mm-hmm. Or I mean, a few. Our buddy Sherm at APA. Yeah. And he reported to me that a few of their literary people jumped ship, either formed their own things or went to agencies that already weren't packaging, took their clients with them. A name or two here or there, but so I don't know. It seems to me that it's just going to be what it is. This is what it is. They can't package. They cannot continue doing what they were doing before. That's not possible. So there is a change. But just what does it mean?
I'm sure there are talks taking place because nobody's going out and doing what they usually do, right? They're not sending out nasty editorials and making public statements to try to move the needle. Everyone's being very quiet, so that leads me to believe that that people are talking, and they're staying quiet about it in hopes that they can come to an agreement. But
it's interesting because in June is pitch season, and so as we creep into June, this is when all that packaging would be happening. So it's not going to be happening, at least not the way it traditionally happened. It can't.
No.
So it'll be interesting to see what deals look like. So many shows got canceled over the last couple of weeks. I mean, a lot of stuff got whacked. Some of the reason why that stuff got whacked is because those were part of packaged deals that had happened in previous periods, and those aren't happening anymore.
True. Yeah. Very true.
Very interesting.
Well, it will continue to be more and more interesting, and of course, Avengers Endgame is moving ever closer to knocking Avatar out of the top all-time spot. Interesting, the all-time top grosser domestically was the Star Wars Episode 7. That's the one that's over $900 million, like $936 million domestically, but it didn't do giant foreign. So I think Endgame is going to overtake Avatar overall pretty soon. Don't know if it'll become number one domestically though.
It'll be an interesting thing to see because how many more Avatar movies are there? 2 more?
3.
3 more?
3 more.
And so as a series of films, I cannot imagine that series of films having the kind of staying power, the legs, particularly at the box office.
Unless the
pressure is going to be gigantic, though.
It's going to be gigantic, but I also don't think Disney is. And I had an interesting disagreement with a friend over this, but I don't think Disney is as invested in Avatar. I think it's something they inherited with Fox. But those movies are already bought and paid for. That money is already spent. So Disney will do what they need to do to market them, but and to see some profit on them, and they will. But none of those are going to do what the original Avatar did.
No, which means they won't come near to doing what Endgame is doing now, and it's not even
going to do close. Anyway, all right. Well, let's get cracking. We got a heap of anime here. Starting with an anime legend, and I've got to put this right at the top because this is a big deal, and a lot of people have been waiting for this for a very long time, and there have been false starts, and it's been rumored and here and there, and it never quite happened, and it finally has happened. The beautiful collector's edition box set of Hayao Miyazaki's Princess Mononoke from the Studio Ghibli collection. This is absolutely sensational. This is an absolutely beautiful thing. This is from G Kids, who is releasing all of their own stuff now. And, this was momentarily with Disney. And anyway, so Shout and G Kids are working together on the G Kids stuff. So Shout is technically releasing it, but G Kids is doing they're mastering this stuff and putting it together on their own. And I think that's great. So from the Studio Ghibli collection is this beautiful box set, which is it's a square box, and it includes a soundtrack on CD and a 40-page book and some really decent extra features as well, like the feature-length storyboards and some featurettes and TV spots and stuff like that. But ultimately, you're watching this for the movie, and Princess Mononoke is a wonderful, wonderful movie.
Yeah.
It's worth pointing out that the American dubbed version was not that great. It was, and you get it here. You can see it dubbed if you want, but watch the Japanese version. That's where this really comes alive. The English dubbed version had like Billy Bob Thornton and some voices that just don't work.
Yeah.
The Japanese version really kind of brings it home. It's an environmental message, and it's a little bit of a preachy film, but it's just a wonderful myth. It's fantastic, and it's the girl raised by wolves and trying to work with the forest spirits and the animal gods to save the earth. It's a beautiful, beautiful film. It's really, really wonderful, and one of Miyazaki's very best. And what a wonderful box set, Princess Mononoke. We've been waiting for this for a very, very long time. Also got a few others to roll through. Try to go through these as quickly as possible. Got some here from Funimation. Got the complete series of Dimension W. This is I'm gonna put all these together here because these all kind of belong together. Hang on. All right. There's a new line from Funimation that they've been doing for a little while, which is the Essentials line. And these are things that have been released before, but they're all classic series, right?
Yeah.
And they want everybody to kind of pay attention to them all over again and fall in love with them all over again. So they're putting them together in a very, very smart way. And these are all Blu-rays. They are not Blu-ray DVD combos. It's only one disc. It's only the Blu-ray disc in all of these. And these are all the essentials, and they're now re-released in these set with a digital copy as well. And some of them have really some kind of funny pull quotes on them. For example, Ninja Slayer from Animation. Now, Ninja Slayer is a little bit controversial. What is funny is that what they put on it to market it, they put these like little fake sticker graphics on here. And one of them, these are the pull quotes, right? This is for Ninja Slayer from Animation, part of the Essentials line. And one of them is a quote from a particular critic that says, LOL, no. The other one says, this is easily one of the worst shows Funimation has ever licensed, maybe even the worst. And then on the back, there's another one that says, hot garbage. Like they're owning the fact that people hate this thing. They're just totally owning it. And I gotta be honest, it's not that bad. I guess for anime people, it's probably horrific. But it's not terrible. I mean, the animation is worth watching. It's a little bit nuts and off the wall. But Ninja Slayer from Animation, well, it's divisive. But that's part of the Essentials line. Also from the Essentials line, Burst Angel, which I think is just really cool and sexy. Definitely not for kids, but it's hot women doing mercenary stuff and being really violent and wearing skimpy little outfits that look dangerous and sexy all at the same time. And why not? Because that's partly what anime was created for.
Yep.
Then we also have the complete series of Dimension W. Pretty aggressive stylistically, almost impossible to really understand the whole cyberpunk world that this inhabits. It's a little bit cryptic, but give it a look. Dimension W, the complete series. Let's see, more cute pixie girls. The complete series of We Without Wings, also part of the Essentials line. This is from the people who did Shuffles. If you know what Shuffles is, it's pretty much exactly the same kind of thing. It's got the same kind of little kinky young girl fetishistic-y thing going on, but it is what it is. Then Bikini Warriors is exactly what the title says. They are warriors, and they wear the tiniest, skimpiest of bikinis. Tim, look at the artwork. Tell me.
You don't even need ink for that. You just like the idea of the thought of a bikini.
I know. Anyway, it's
I love it.
It's really quite funny. Look, I'm telling you, it just takes place in a mythical world, and you have women who wear next to nothing who are going out and fighting up a storm, and you are only basically. This is just one step removed from hentai. You're watching this only because you want to watch dangerous anime strippers. I don't know, something like that. Scrapped Princess, the complete series. This is the all 24 episodes, also part of the Essentials line. And this is actually quite pleasant and very, very enjoyable. These are the people that originally did Full Metal Alchemist, and it is another standard kind of Joseph Campbell thing where you have this girl who is prophesied to achieve a certain thing. And they refer to her as the Scrapped Princess. And this is her very Joseph Campbell-like adventure, and with her two siblings. The mythology gets pretty deep at a certain point, but it's not overly cryptic. It doesn't it doesn't take a lot to wrap your head around it. So Scrapped Princess, as far as the mythical Campbell-esque feminist odysseys, is one of the better ones in recent years. Got a couple of other real swanky collector's boxes here. This is Darling in the Franxx. Franxx is spelled Franxx. This is a really, really slick box set with a excuse me, a little slip cover on it. Comes with all kinds of collectible cards and a production art booklet and all kinds of other stuff in it. This thing is apparently really, really popular right now. This is episodes 1 through 12. And it's kind of a I want to say on some level it feels like an anime version of the Avengers, the original TV, the Avengers. It definitely pushes all of those buttons.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful set. Everything that you could. This is exclusive content on part 1. And it's great. It's really.
I live for Kathy Gale and Mrs. Peel. And
oh yeah. This is
like that's the anime in the vein of.
Yeah, it's this is fun stuff. And then we've also got seasons 1 and 2 plus extras of Concrete Revolution. Concrete Revolution is pretty outrageous and outlandish stuff. This is about I guess Men in Black is maybe kind of an example of this. So you've got this special group of agents that have been formed to protect society from creatures and demons and all this kind of stuff. And so there's definitely a Men in Black kind of a vibe here. It goes in some weirder directions, as anime often does, and certainly it's not like Aliens. Men in Black is aliens. This is more outlandish creatures so that they can do even more outlandish anime. But there's a lot of fun stuff here, promo videos, and commercials, and all kinds of other stuff in here. And there's even an explanation of what the Concrete Revolution is. I think technically it's Concrete Revolution, but I don't know what Revolution is. So it's Concrete Revolution to me. Let me pick just a few more out of this last bunch. Oh, yeah. This is good stuff. Armored Trooper Votoms, the OVA collection one from Made in Japan. Armored Trooper Votoms is, it's part of the mecha tradition in anime, and it it's guys shooting stuff and with giant armor and all the things that you want out of mecha. Doesn't really transcend any of the rest, but this particular 52 episode run has a certain following, so that's out there. Let's see. Also from Funimation is Ultimate Otaku Teacher, the complete series. I don't know why they call this Ultimate. No, there's nothing ultimate about it. This is it's nothing. This is not action or anything. This is just kind of fun and cute and modestly entertaining. It's got some humor to it. But it's a little bit of a self-reflexive thing on manga and anime. It's about this kid who is obsessed with anime and manga, and he's all he has in his life is sort of loneliness and his blog, and he can't really. He's like a Walter Mitty character, right? He's a Walter Mitty character, so he can, he just wants to find something that's fulfilling for him, and he eventually finds it in teaching. And then you get into all kinds of weird tangents that sort of take it off on a weird plane. But nonetheless, it's entertaining. I don't know why we call it Ultimate, but there it is. It's a guy who becomes a teacher, and he's like Walter Mitty. It doesn't even make sense. Most anime doesn't. What do you want to tell me? Okay, and then just a couple more here real quickly. One Piece.
Oh, the One Piece
The One Piece thing. Shonen Jump One Piece episode of Sabo is a Blu-ray and DVD combo set. This is a separate One Piece adventure that will certainly sit well with anybody who has seen One Piece. If you haven't seen a single episode of One Piece previously, none of this is going to make any sense to you. You need to have some kind of frame of reference for the One Piece world. Otherwise, that thing will it'll completely throw you. And then I'm going to do one more. And we can get into some documentaries. No, that's not very interesting. Hold on. Desiree, the complete series, spelled like Diesirae, like Desiree. This thing is outlandishly animated. It's really, really super cool. This is a supernatural adventure that is all about a high school student who is empowered to stop the resurgence of a supernatural force in the world. And it is, again, that Joseph Campbell thing. These are always messianic figures. But the costumes, the animation, the artwork, the art direction in this thing is just super cool, super slick, has kind of I want to say a Matrixy vibe to it, but it's really, really cool, and it's worth checking out. That is from anime, and it is Diesirae, the complete series, Desiree, or Desiree, however you want to pronounce it. All right, let's move on to some other stuff. We got docs.
A few docs, yeah. Some interesting stuff here, too. Black Hawk Down, the Untold Story. Of course, the Black Hawk Down movie we'll all remember. That's late 90s.
Which is out on 4K, and I'm still harassing Sony to send it to us. Just want to point that out.
Powerful movie. Ridley. Was that Ridley or Tony?
That was Ridley.
That was Ridley.
Ridley's like super proud of that film.
Yeah. It's a good movie. The story it was telling is the October 1993 story of the downing of two Black Hawk helicopters, which is in Mogadishu, Somalia, which is what this doc is about. So here we get the actual true story. Yeah. Several of the actual men who were there from the various different branches of the service that participated in this siege, which was very intensely told there. Nevertheless, as is often the case, this is better.
Yeah,
this is better. They have these actual people, and there was a lot of footage of this. Taken from all kinds of perspectives and points of views, including, believe it or not, a wee bit of body cam footage, which in 1993 was sort of an amazing thing. It was a different kind of thing that they were using it for, not like it's used today. But all kinds of stuff that they used to tell these stories, but not any recreations, I'm happy to say. Yeah. So all kinds of bonus features on this too. So Black Hawk Down, the Untold Story.
Nice.
Neat stuff. The Moses controversy. Wait, I really should let you do this one, just because there's a context to all of it. So, and Michael Medved has a quote, particularly on the back of the box there.
Yeah, the patterns of evidence. This goes to the. This is actually a really interesting series. Or there's a longer series of this patterns of evidence that deals with the origins of books of the Bible and who wrote them and so forth and so on. No, it's actually very, very interesting because the question is, did Moses actually write the 5 books of the Bible?
Mm-hmm.
You know, which is some of the stuff I studied. The reason Tim handed this to me is that's some of the stuff I studied in college originally when I was a history major.
Yeah.
And there's a real dispute over it. But so Tim Mahoney is the guy who's done this before. He did one on the Exodus, and now he's examining whether or not the evidence really does support that. There's all kinds of evidence to suggest that Moses wrote most of them, but then they were finished by someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that's kind of that dispute goes on endlessly in history. I mean, there's if you study even the Quran was never written down during Muhammad's life.
No, it was
orally. It was orally transmitted.
Yeah, the Mahabharata, all kinds of stuff inside the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
And in outside of the realm of religion, issues around Shakespeare, you know, who really wrote this and that and this particular play or that particular play. There are even people who say that Shakespeare didn't actually exist.
Yeah, well, you know, screw them.
Yeah, because that's ridiculous.
I know he exists because I just saw him in a new Kenneth Branagh movie.
Yes, of course. You know with that.
Yeah, the Moses controversy. So all the patterns of evidence stuff. The previous one was patterns of evidence, the Exodus, and this is fun stuff.
And then I have 3 docs on one disc here, A Hero's Welcome, honoring the extraordinary sacrifice of America's greatest soldiers. And what we basically have here are 3 separate films to tell the story of 3 very heroic deeds undertaken during war. Never Surrender, the Ed Ramsey story, tells the story of Ed Ramsey, who during the campaign in the Philippines, his unit was pretty much smashed to pieces. He was able to get away, and rather than surrendering, he joined a underground Filipino band of guerrillas. Rose to the level of commander in that group of almost 40,000 guerrilla warriors, and just led them in the rest of the war in the Philippines.
Wow,
which is quite a story. So that's Ed Ramsey's story there. Until they are home. The first one, by the way, is being narrated by Josh Brolin. These all have sort of interesting guys narrating. Kelsey Grammer narrates Until They Are Home. This is the story of what's called the Joint POW-MIA Accounting Command.
That's a long name.
It's a long name, and it kind of goes back all the way back to those guys that they sent after World War II into all over Germany to find all that stolen art. I think there was a movie about that.
Yeah.
With George Clooney, if I'm not mistaken. Well, this is essentially that sort of a group of guys who go back to various different places where major battles were fought and try to collect and identify and bring home as much information and identification as they can about any folks still in MIA in any particular theater of war. So that's what they do. Kelsey Grammer narrating that. Return to Tarawa, the legend of Leon Cooper, the Leon Cooper story. And we have Ed Harris narrating this one.
Oh, it's all about your narrator.
It's all about your narrator.
Those are 2 really great voices.
Yeah, that was a very, very bloody battle fought in 1943, and this is all about that beach that they had to take. And what we do basically is we literally, with this old soldier who is still alive at the time of the making of this movie, obviously, return to that beach and have him sort of narrate as much as he can remember. And he can recall a great deal about that bloody battle. Yeah. So that's what these are, and it's really interesting stuff. You can never. I do not believe you will ever run out of stories to tell about WW2 for sure.
Never.
Don't know about Vietnam, maybe Korea, but WW2, I think you'll be able to do that forever. Bosch, the Garden of Dreams. That's a wonderful, wonderful painting. The Garden of Earthly Delights by Hieronymus Bosch. Bosch, who died about 500 years ago.
Yeah.
This doc sort of celebrates that by examining looking at, philosophizing about
Yeah.
this particular Hieronymus Bosch painting. Hieronymus is known for having painted some fairly disturbing things. This particular painting isn't terribly disturbing, but it's full of metaphor and homily. It's full of all kinds. You could write. I think it was Salman Rushdie that says you could probably write 100 novels just from looking at this painting.
So great.
Any 4 or 5 inches of this painting is telling you an entirely different story. So it's quite extraordinary. This film goes into everything there is to know about that painting and a good deal about Hieronymus Bosch. Really great stuff. Bosch, The Garden of Dreams is the name of the
Creepy
movie.
paintings, but they're great paintings.
Creepy paintings, but amazing, particularly given the period in which they were done. Garry Winogrand was one of the original street photographers.
Man, this is a cool movie.
And Garry with those street photographers, what these guys started doing, and women, is late, as far back as the late 30s. It's going out into the streets with little cameras like Brownings and Leicas.
Yeah.
And simply photographing the life, the things that people were doing on the street. Occasionally, they would capture something absolutely extraordinary. But mostly it was just about life as it was happening. It was cinema verite in cameras.
The great thing about this doc in particular is it's not just about his photography. There's a moment in here where he moves from New York to L.A.
Mm-hmm.
and his photography changes.
Yeah,
and they analyze. There are some of his real scholars of his work who study his life, and they put and one guy figures out why. And when you find out why, you're just going to cry.
Oh, really?
It's the most beautiful moment. It's just a beautiful thing. It's
great,
really fantastic.
great moment of elucidation.
Yeah.
Garry died in 1984, and this is an absolutely extraordinary work. If you do not know the work of Garry Winogrand, then this is really a great film for you.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you're a fan of particularly street photography, a lot of black and white photography, you're going to really, really love this movie. Sasha Waters Fryer, Garry Winogrand, All Things Are Photographable is the name of the movie.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Nicholas and Alexandria, The Love Letters. So this is with Susanna Lipscomb, who's a scholar of Tsarist Russia and other things. So more than 100 years ago now, a couple of years past 100 years ago now, Tsar Nicholas and his wife Alexandria and all of their children were taken out into the borders and murdered, assassinated.
Yeah,
assassinated is what they were. So anyway. This explores the literally hundreds of love letters written back and forth between Nicholas and Alexandria. Aside from being extremely sort of intimate, they get real hot and sexual in some of this stuff. It also illustrates what lousy leaders they were.
That's true.
They were just terrible.
There's a reason there was a revolution.
Yeah, and the way that they understood and saw things, and the way that they understood the people.
Yeah,
and of course they were listening to Rasputin. First mistake. And you listen to Rasputin, you end up in a hole out in the woods. But nevertheless, this is quite elucidating to that period as well. Thousands of love letters back and forth between them, and the sort of analysis of it all by Miss Lipscomb is really quite good. Quite good. Surviving Birkenau by Dr. Susan Spatz, the Dr. Susan Spatz story. So Dr. Spatz is a wonderful professor at the University of North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. It's where she taught most of her career. And this film is all about, and they tell it with all of these wonderful documents, photographs. When she was in 1922, she was born in 1922, and when she was a teenager, and the Nazis came into Vienna, her and her mother had to make a number of decisions about what they were going to do. Her mother made some very bad mistakes, one of which led to the loss of her and to her teenage daughter, to Susan, going on the run and being led on a death march and spending some time at every one of the major death camps that you can think of. I think they started. She ended up at I think at Tarawa is where they started out, and she ended up at Birkenau. And this is just an astonishing story of how this little, slight teenage girl managed to survive for 3 years, including that insane, brutal death march, until they were actually liberated. It's just a story of how she managed to do that, and to go on to live a very long and influential life. It's just a beautiful, beautiful. She goes about now telling the story. So this is a document of what happened to her and to those Holocaust deniers. I suggest you watch this. This is a real story of an absolute survivor. Fantastic, Surviving Birkenau, the Susan Spatz story. Louis Theroux, My Scientology Movie. Oh, okay. So this is a bit of a scammy movie and a little bit self-serving. So a documentarian, Louis Theroux, he decides that he wants to do a doc on the Church of Scientology. He wants to be gain admittance into their main headquarters.
Yeah.
Well, that's not going to happen. And do this doc, and of course he knows this is not going to happen. So what he pulls is a sort of Michael Moore-ish kind of thing, where he basically just trolls the Scientology building, and he trolls Scientology people, and he trolls the guards at the Scientology building, and then he takes it up a notch. He does, in fact, interview several people who sort of left Scientology and have bones to pick.
Yeah.
And he gets them to describe in extreme detail very specific moments that they claim that they witnessed. Sometimes they do, in fact, corroborate each other, though, so that's an interesting thing. Then he goes out and hires actors to play the individuals in each one of these scenarios as described by these scientists. So you have somebody playing that. Who's that guy's name? Muscovich?
Yeah.
He has a guy playing Muscovich. The guy looks like Muscovich, too. He hires a guy to play Tom Cruise. Guy looks like Tom Cruise, too. And he sets up a scene in a set, and he has this guy describe it all, and he gives them direction. They shoot it, and basically they make up and shoot a scene. And then the other guy also says, yeah, it was just like that. It's just like that. And then Tom did this. And then he has, so, it's nothing. This is, I'm not even really sure you can call this a documentary. Can you do it?
I guess it's a personal essay film. It's like
a personal essay.
It's what Moore does, but it's also what Morgan Spurlock does.
Yeah. But what do you learn about Scientology? Nothing.
Much.
Not a single thing.
He's promoting himself.
Yeah, and we're just fine. Knock yourself out with that, dude. A documentary by Greg Bergman and A.D. Freeze called "Big Like Me: The Extended Director's Cut." That's a joke. So this is a movie about this guy, this comedian Greg Bergman, who directs the film, as he goes on this this crazy quest to enlarge his penis.
Okay.
He wants.
Good night, everybody.
He tries. Yeah, right. I'll be here all week. Every stupid pill you can think of, he takes. Every potion you can think of, he rubs on that thing. He eventually goes down to Tijuana, Mexico, where he's going to talk to this surgeon.
Oh no!
And you know what? I turned the movie off. I didn't want to see how the hell that turned out. So,
all right, we got a bunch of PBS stuff here. We're gonna go through it rather methodically. Let's see. Right to Fail is a Frontline documentary done in collaboration with ProPublica that looks at it begins with a 2014 ruling that that in New York, that people who had extreme mental illness and were sitting around in homes were being neglected, and that this was a violation of civil rights. Okay, so that then completely changes the legal status of thousands of people, and if you flash forward then until 2019. Now you see how the policy actually, how this change has resonated. Was this a constructive thing? Was this a good thing that we now are trying to sort of take these people who normally are perceived as being not capable of caring for themselves and giving them the chance to sort of be autonomous and independent and whatnot. So and it's interesting. The actual program. The housing program that is involved here is there's pros and cons to it, and the question is there a right to fail in life just generally, and most people would say yes, but all of the legalese is what makes this so interesting. Is that what the courts do and don't do, and what they can and can't do, and what they should do but won't do. That's where it really gets into the weeds. It's actually very interesting.
It got complicated in another spot too. It's because sometimes your failure costs society something.
Yeah.
So you're out there failing, and my taxes just went up.
Yeah.
Whereas,
The ripple effect.
yeah,
the unintended ripple
or
effect.
perhaps just my quality of maybe my taxes didn't go up, but maybe my quality of life went down because of your failure.
It's a question of where you draw that line.
Yeah.
Like how much, because sometimes it's pretty obvious. Like the old saying is, "Your right to throw a punch stops at my nose."
Yeah,
Well, that's a clear-cut line.
Yeah.
But there are other areas where that line isn't quite so clearly defined,
Yeah.
and especially where the mentally ill are concerned. So
Yeah.
that's what's interesting there. And then a couple of novas here. Rise of the Rockets. I love it. Coming on the eve of Rocket Man, which is getting all kinds of rave reviews out of Cannes. Has nothing to do with Elton John.
This is about as much as that Freddie Mercury movie had to do with him.
No, this is just this is about now that we've moved into a new era where we used to have government rockets, and now private companies are building rockets, and costs are coming down. And the question is, are we finally getting to a place where we're going to, start to merchandise space? And it's very, very interesting. It makes some predictions. I'm not sure they're entirely correct, but it's certainly interesting. And the other nova is the next Pompeii. And the question here is, Pompeii was back in 79 AD, buried an entire city, and they just discovered all kinds of things about Pompeii, like that they used molten steel to fill in potholes and stuff like that. So the question here is there going to be an next Pompeii? Is there somewhere else on the earth that is threatened by a volcano? And the answer here is that in Naples, they may very well be the next one. They are there's like a giant volcano that was recently discovered pretty much underneath Naples. So if that thing ceases to be dormant and explodes, the entire city of Naples could be blown into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So it's very, very interesting and a little bit scary. But it's Nova, so they're not exactly pulling our chain. Wonderful travelogue here. The Best of World's Greatest is 6 episodes of just beautiful parts of the world. Everything from Machu Picchu to volcanoes to coral reefs and islands. And it's a travelogue. You're just traveling around the planet, PBS style, seeing all of these extraordinary places around the world that are considered among the greatest in their individual classes. And most of this is stuff that these are places that are hostile on some level. You're not going to sort of join a tour and go there with some kind of a package deal on a cruise ship. You got to make an effort. But some of these you're going to want them on your bucket list. The effort is definitely going to be worthwhile. So this would have been a good one to do on Blu-ray. Not on Blu-ray, unfortunately, but still worth checking out. The Best of World's Greatest.
Interesting. Also out of PBS, part of the Secrets of the Dead series, the Nero Files. This is very interesting to me. Then this is another one of these sort of explorations of whether or not the historically reported individual is kind of true. Nero, of course, renowned as a brutal, villainous, horrible, miserable dictator who burned Rome so he could fiddle to it and compose a song. Look, the 68 AD was when Nero was around, and he was one of the last. He was the last Julio Claudian emperors. He was adopted. He was an adopted son.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's so what they pretend to do here is through research and historical documents and uncovering this, that, and the other thing, find what the true story is about Nero. It suggests that what we think we know about Nero is not true. J.O. Sanders is doing the narration, by the way, and I love J.O. Sanders' voice, so it's kind of cool just for that alone. 2 others, both Dr. Lewis Henry Gates projects. The first, Finding Your Roots, a continuation of his,
It's a great show.
It's just wonderful, Finding Your Roots series. I just love it. And it's not so much about the individual things that are found out about any of these usually sort of quasi-famous people's roots.
Yeah.
Which is, it is what it is. What's interesting is that the way expectation is always undermined.
Yeah.
That's what I like watching. We think we know people.
Yeah.
You're looking at some guy, he's black. You're looking at some woman, she's white. You're looking at, and by the time I'm sorry, you're Japanese. Got it, because they do the DNA, they do all the research with the paperwork and all of that, but then they do the DNA business too. Yeah. And then I'm sorry, you're Japanese.
We are all mongrels, man.
We should just cut it out. It's insane. I'm always happy to point out people that I'm mostly Jewish.
I love the best story I ever heard of that was Patton Oswalt, because he does it in one of his routines. scenes, and he talks about how he did one of these things, and he came back, so much Jewish and so much this and that and the other thing, and then whatever Polish and all the stuff that they expect, and then there's like 15% Mongolian, and he's like, Mongolian.
Not for nothing,
and so he reaches out to them, and he gets the guy on the phone. He goes, "Yeah, Mongolian." And the guy's like, "Oh yeah, totally." And he's like, "Wait, explain." He goes, "It's Genghis Khan." Because when he moved all across,
Genghis got around.
He screwed everybody, and just kind of and that's the thing. It's like, okay, so how much of Europe actually has Mongolian blood? Because Genghis Khan and the Mongols were just laying their seeds everywhere.
I'm sorry, that would make me happy. Just so folks know, Laura Linney, Marissa Tomei, Michael K. Williams, George R.R. Martin.
Yeah,
interesting.
Right?
Sheryl Sandberg, the journalist Christine Amanpour, Joe Madsen, and the athlete Michael Strahan. I think he was on CBS this morning. Are all in this one, and so all kinds of people from all over the places, and you find out all sorts of interesting things about them. Another one from Dr. Gates, Reconstruction. America after the Civil War. This is endlessly fascinating to me. If you happen to be I'm an American history teacher.
My father was basically born right after Reconstruction.
Yeah, Reconstruction began in 1863 to about 1877. Reconstruction. It was a very short period, but during that period, the people have often forgot the first African Americans, black Americans
were elected to Congress.
The United States got various different Congress, state houses, and first senator, and businesses, all those HBCUs established, and around 1877, for a number of different reasons, most of which had to do with the South, still being a mess, after the Civil War, and petitioning for all kinds of restrictions to be allowed to be set up down there, and how that changed the next almost 100 years, almost 100 years, certainly up till Brown versus Board of Education at the minimum. Maybe even the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
Yeah.
Maybe that. Anyway, this chronicles that wonderfully, including lots of really, really great old daguerreotypes and the sort of photographs from the period, sepia tone and all kind of stuff, walking right through the 1960s and 70s. And he does this wonderful thing where he connects a thing that happened in 75 to a thing that happens in 1975, and you can see the direct through line from that event to this event, because that's the way history works, and I love the way he tells it. All right, that's great stuff.
All right, gonna hit some classics now. Gonna blow through these piles. And got a whole ton from the Kino Studio Classics line. So let's go through these first, because Kino just keeps, and this comes, man, every month Kino hits it hard. So you got to keep up, because these are significant movies, and you're going to find gems in here somewhere that you have to add to your collection. All of them on Blu-ray. First one is a movie that is one of the greatest nature films of my childhood. I am so elated this is finally out. I think I saw this when I didn't see it in the theater, but I saw it not long after. Ring of Bright Water, which is basically Born Free with otters.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
They actually showed that in schools to us, like a school assembly sort of screening.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's Born Free with Otters, and it's the about the actual husband and wife team who were in Bill Travers and Virginia McKenna, who actually were in Born Free. Now they're focused on Midge, who is just the sweetest little freaking otter thing in the world. And where this goes is just as compelling as Born Free, and it's not as well known, but it's really, really a lovely movie. From 1969, Ring of Bright Water. Definitely got to see this. It's just, it's absolutely beautiful. Then we've also got Robbery with Stanley Baker, Joanna Pettit, and James Booth. This is a Joseph E. Levine produced Peter Yates movie from 1967. Right there on that moment before Peter Yates is really set to just kind of break through. This is basically one of those great British crime films of the 1960s, and it's right in there. It's kind of in there with I don't want to say it's with the Italian Job. It's kind of like maybe a notch below the Italian Job, but it's really really gritty. It's got some great action scenes. It's very very cool, and it's worth checking out. It really kind of captures the moment in the '60s when Britain had either spy films or gangster films, and this is a really really sharp one. And Peter Yates directs the hell out of this thing. It's really really well done, and the film is Robbery from 1967 with a great cast. Also has Frank Finlay. William Marlowe, just Joanna Pettit is so good in this, just absolutely fantastic. Some of you might remember Swing Vote with Kevin Costner from 2008. This is not that long ago, but it has become kind of a thing just because politics has gotten so crazy that now this movie feels almost like a documentary all over again. At the time, people thought, yeah, that's kind of really crazy that there would be an election that came down to one guy and everybody has to court the one guy in order to get elected. And as silly as that sounds, sillier things happen every single day now. Stanley Tucci, Judge Reinhold, Kelsey Grammer, Dennis Hopper, great cast. But Kevin Costner plays this yokely guy just to a perfect T. And that is the strangely, weirdly prophetic Swing Vote. Richard Crenna, Fred Astaire.
I did a junket for that movie.
I know, it just feels like yesterday, right?
Yeah, but it's all like
nuts.
Willikers, man.
Alf Kellen in 1969 directed Midas Run with Richard Crenna, Fred Astaire, and Anne Haywood. Very aging Fred Astaire, we should point out. He's not dancing and hoofing it here for in any conceivable way. Cesar Romero is in this as well, which is always fun. So is Roddy McDowall. This is basically a heist comedy, and it's got a great score by Elmer Bernstein, but otherwise it's just a heist comedy, and it's fine for what it is. In 1960s had a lot of heist films and heist comedies, and it's cute. Wouldn't say it was A-list or anything. One of my favorite all-time Jim Jarmusch movies, Broken Flowers, with Bill Murray.
Goodness, Bill Murray is amazing in that movie.
Jim Jarmusch just opened the Cannes Film Festival with a zombie movie with Bill Murray that everybody thinks is great. Yeah. The reviews are through the roof. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
I can imagine what a Jim Jarmusch zombie movie is going to be like. It's going to be the best. It's going to be the end of all zombie movies. But Broken Flowers, Bill Murray plays a guy who, he's one of these celebrities who's been fast and loose and very indiscreet over the years, and he gets a letter from a former lover, not signed, about a daughter that she had, and now he's got to figure out who was it, and he's got to try to figure out who's this daughter, and how do I track this person down. And so he goes and revisits all of his previous conquests, and it's a really interesting kind of mythical odyssey on a weird Jarmusch scale. I think it's a brilliant film. Jarmusch wrote and directed it. I think it's absolutely genius.
If in the hands of an ordinary director, it would have just been a sort of rude, crude, obnoxious guy trembling back through the. But no, this is this contemplative, thoughtful.
It's so thoughtful.
Sharon Stone, very good in that movie.
Oh, she's so great. The Man Who Haunted Himself, by Basil Dearden, starring the actor that the British hate to claim their own, Roger Moore. I have talked to so many people from England, so many of my British friends, just they would prefer to pretend that Roger Moore is really, he's American, he's Canadian, he's not British.
I watch him on The Saint every morning. It's one of the early mornings. I'm sorry, Roger's all right with me.
Roger's my man.
And he was my favorite Bond. I know
he was my first Bond.
Connery was always a little too mean. Roger was a bon vivant. He was a secret agent and loving it.
So what this is actually a really interesting movie. And Roger Moore is surprisingly good in it. He's not doing the Bond thing. He's not doing the Saint thing, the Simon Templar thing. He plays a guy who's in an accident, and he's momentarily and he's dead for a moment. They briefly declare him dead, and then once he gets back to his life, he finds out that somebody who looks exactly like him has been living his life.
Ugh.
Like to a creepy degree. It's not just like sightings, like actually insinuating himself into his life, and it's very Lynchian actually, and it gets into all kinds of questions about his mental state and possible supernatural explanations. It's really good.
That's kind of wicked cool.
Yeah, it is. And before he died, they were able to get an audio commentary with Brian Forbes, who co-wrote this, and Roger Moore, and moderated by Jonathan Southcott, and it's really quite cool. There's also a little tidbit on here with Joe Dante and Stuart Gordon talking about the film in their very expert way. It's really, it's very, very cool. So Basil Dearden, director Basil Dearden, is the man who haunted himself with Roger Moore. It's very cool. This is a legendary film. We talked about this when we talked about the Hal Ashby documentary Hal.
Yeah.
And this is the film that really kind of started it all for Hal Ashby, The Landlord, which was produced by Norman Jewison, his very, very good friend, who's interviewed all over the place in that documentary. And this is where Hal Ashby moved from being a legendary editor to being a great director.
Yeah.
And it is a great, great film. This was made in 1970, and it really is one of those 60s to 70s pivot points. Stars Beau Bridges as
wonderful Diana Sands.
Oh yes, this is just terrific. This deals with the changes that are going on at the time, obviously with gentrification and class and race, and
it's all relevant again right now. Very second. It's insane.
Right now.
Bill Gunn, one of the screenwriters on that,
and shot by Gordon Willis.
Yeah,
the legendary Gordon Willis,
whom
I've heard on the phone. Another Josephine Levine film. Marlon Brando starring for Michael Winner in The Nightcomers. Really, not a film that a lot of people have seen, to be honest, from 1972. Has a couple of audio commentaries on here with Michael Winner and film historian Kat Ellinger. But this is definitely one of those weird 1970s movies. There are a lot of these that have a really bizarre feel to them. Just they feel like kind of early, like period horror films that were nonetheless very much rooted in the 70s. And this is adapted from Henry James Turner The Screw, which previously was the basis for at least 2 other films, including The Innocents. And really great performances in here. But Brando in his kind of in his last tango mode is very, very good and very different from what you would normally expect of him. The movie's kind of disappeared a little bit, as like most Michael Winner films, but it's worth checking out still. The Nightcomers with Marlon Brando, produced by Josephine Levine. I got 2 more here. One sublime, one ridiculous. I am quite a fan of the very underrated von Richthofen and Brown, movie from 1971. A little bit late for World War I movies, but really a lot of good stuff in here. This is directed by Roger Corman, and one of those Roger Corman movies that you would not expect him to have directed.
Because it's far better.
It's a real movie.
Right. Yeah, every now and Roger
so Roger Corman had a moment in his career where he was trying to be a real filmmaker. Even when he was still making exploitation films, he was trying to be a real filmmaker. And for 1971, he decided to take a shot at it again, and produced by his brother Gene, and working with a very good script by John and Joyce Corrington, and a great score by Hugo Friedhofer, by the way. A really, really good classic score. Hugo Friedhofer, one of the all-time greats. He decided to go and tell the story of the Red Baron, but not just the Red Baron, but his Canadian counterpart, the former wheat farmer Roy Brown. And it's really, really quite smart, and it's one of the better films from that. One of the better World War I films from that era, and there are a few of them, but this one really, it's very, very smart, and you see what a good director Roger Corman can be. It's worth checking out. It really is. There's even an interview with Corman on it, who's always a fun interview. We've interviewed him before. And here is the ridiculous Bitter Moon. Now, I love the score for Bitter Moon. I love the director of Bitter Moon, despite the controversy. Roman Polanski directed Bitter Moon. The score is by Vangelis. I am a huge Vangelis fan. I own the score. It's a great score. Polanski makes a lot of great movies. This is not one of them. This is insane. This is basically, let's take 4 people, put them off on vacation together, and let them just kind of do weird and kinky sexual things with each other. In a bizarre foursome thing. Emmanuelle Seigner, Polanski's wife, is in it. So is Peter Coyote. The other couple is Hugh Grant and Kristen Scott Thomas. Now, the thing is, if you want to see Peter Coyote put on a pig mask and then we'll go and be on all fours naked with the pig mask crawling around on the floor, That's actually a scene in this movie.
Oh yeah, and don't forget about the thing with the milk.
Yeah, no, I don't want to. I don't want to go there. This is
Oh.
just a twisted movie. It's supposedly a comedy now. That's what they're saying. It's funny. No, it was not meant to be
No,
funny.
I saw that movie in theatrical release.
This was.
I must admit, most women, a lot of women, for whatever reason, like that movie.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I don't know why either. I don't know. Yeah.
Anyway,
I
I recommend the score, nothing else.
Shall we? Try
Yeah,
a few
fire
more?
away. Do
Man, some of these movies just interested me because they were long ago than you think. Anaconda, 1997.
22 years ago.
22 years ago, Jennifer Lopez, of course, John Voight, Eric Stoltz. I had completely forgotten that Eric Stoltz was in this movie. Owen Wilson is in this movie.
Holy
Kerry
cow.
Werr is in this movie. Danny Trejo is in this movie. But of course,
Yes.
the star of the movie was Jennifer
Yeah.
Lopez and Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah.
And Ice Cube. Anyway, this is a gigantic anaconda.
That's all
that's all it is. The mistake that they make in this movie is the one that Steven didn't make in Jaws. They show you the snake. If they never showed you the snake, just sort of rippling up. But once you see the big stupid fake ass,
ancient CGI.
and so I mean,
it's really CGI.
I mean, really, it's like the snake looks like Dino from the Flintstone cartoons.
Yeah.
Jennifer is fine as hell though, so that's great. Ice Cube working with John Carpenter again. I hadn't thought of them, and not actually that was Luis Lalosa. This is Ice Cube with John Carpenter in Ghost of Mars, which, believe it or not, is 2001. This was like when Ice Cube started his career. He had a moment there where obviously he played Doughboy, Boys in the Hood, and then he did these sort of funny sort of comedies, and every now and again he'd play like a dad or something like that. And Ice Cube at this moment was still trying to play tough guys with guns. And I'm so glad that he quit doing that and he started playing all those barbers and all in the barbershop movies and all that kind of stuff, because I think that's what gave him a career. If he had kept doing this kind of stuff, Ice Cube's career would have been over 19 years ago. Nevertheless, in this one, it's sometime in I think it's 2176, and the Martian police have to pick up this highly dangerous criminal and transport him someplace. What do I love about Ghosts of Mars? This is who's in this movie. So you got Jason Statham, had forgot about him. Clea Duvall, she's in this movie. Pam Grier, forgot she was in this movie.
I know.
Joanna Cassidy,
it's crazy.
I forgot she was in this movie.
I know.
It was just fantastic. Cast of really really interesting folks. From when did this come out? 1978.
Yeah.
Faye Dunaway, Tommy Lee Jones, The Eyes of Laura Mars. I will tell you this. Faye Dunaway had a moment when she was from about 1960, Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah.
Through about 1980, 81, probably Mommy Dearest.
Yeah.
When she was really a one hell of a movie star.
Yeah.
She was alluring and beautiful and sexy and captivating. Faye was never the greatest actress in the world, but she had a way of holding the screen there, and I hate that she sort of faded into But anyway, this is a really neat movie. Look at the cover of that in black and white.
It's beautiful.
It's just absolutely beautiful. They don't make
those
posters
cheekbones
like
and those legs.
And Tommy Lee Jones
Yeah.
and The Eyes of Laura Mars. Not a lot on that. Bonus content includes an audio commentary by Irv Kershner, who directed the film. You want to knock off a couple of those?
Yeah, so let's well, we're right at the end here, so we're gonna call it quits here in just a second, but I want to make quick mention of Godard's The Image book. Now, I have not liked anything that Godard has done in years, but Tim is among those who thinks that he still has his chops, and a lot of people really love him, like our friend Manola over at the New York Times. So here's what Godard does. He goes and he shoots a bunch of stuff, just shoots a lot of stuff, and then he recites some esoteric stuff over it, and I guess it's meaningful. It's like Sartre narrating somebody's vacation or something. I don't know, but anyway, that's what's going on here in the Image book. It's meant to, what he's basically putting together is pieces of old movies and then like modern day footage, and it's somehow all supposed to make some kind of a juxtaposition that is poetic and meaningful. I don't get it, but nonetheless, it's on Blu-ray. It's from Kino. It won a special award at the Cannes Film Festival for some ungodly reason. I don't understand what, but there it is. Everybody gets it except me. I'm the only one doesn't get it. There's an interview on here with the producer, Fabrice Aragno. Never going to be an interview with Godard because he ain't going to sit still for that. And then there's an essay by James Quant, who programs at the Cinematheque in Toronto, and a conversation with Nicole Brenet from the 2019 Rotterdam Film Festival, which is rather elaborate and almost better than the movie, and almost worth checking it out all by itself. And then the last one I'm going to make mention of here real quickly is from Arrow Academy. You got to check this out. This is The Big Clock with Ray Milland and Charles Laughton, directed by John Farrow. Maybe the best film that Mia's dad ever directed. He did a lot of junk, but he did do a few really great films, and The Big Clock is one of the great ones. This is based on the novel by Kenneth Fearing, and it's a totally unique film for its day, which was 1948.
Yeah.
Completely unique. It's funny, but it's intense. It's dark and suspenseful, but it's ironic. It's got a really, really fascinating vibe to it. It would almost be a Coen Brothers movie.
Oh yeah, Charles
today.
Laughton, the Maureen O'Sullivan.
It's fantastic. Maureen O'Sullivan, George McCready, Rita Johnson, Elsa Lanchester is in it as well.
Oh yeah.
Really, really just superb. And produced by Richard Maibaum, who, of course, was the screenwriter for a lot of the early Bond films as well. So it's really worth checking out. It's just Ray Milland plays this editor of a magazine that deals in crime stories, and his boss is Charles Laughton, who's an absolute terror, and says, no, you're not going to go on vacation. And so the conflict that generates their disagreement over whether Ray Milland is going to take a vacation just goes totally off the rails. It's absolutely fantastic. I almost wish the Coens would remake this.
Yeah,
that's sacrilege.
That's
what they should do.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Be fantastic. Great movie, really great. Also has a Lux radio drama on it with Ray Milland. It's terrific. The Big Clock by John Farrow from part of Arrow Academy.
Okay, cool.
And with that, we are done, and we will see you guys next week. Hopefully nobody else dies during the week, because we're getting tired of all the opens.
Got to start a new count.